In the small, dusty village of Ijebuode, a young girl named Emily stood silently as her father's angry voice cut through the evening air. "A daughter brings nothing but trouble," he shouted, his face red with rage. Emily's heart sank. She had only asked to stay in school. Instead of support, she got a slap of shame. Then came a hard shove that knocked her to the floor. Her mother cried quietly in the corner, helpless to stop it. At just 14 years old, Emily was thrown out of her home, not for doing anything wrong, but simply for being a girl. With nothing but the clothes on her back and a heart full of hurt, she walked away from the only home she had ever known. The sun dipped low behind the trees as she wandered down the road, unsure where to go. People whispered, but no one helped. Her father's words echoed in her ears with every step, "You're a curse, not a daughter." She wiped her tears with the edge of her wrapper and kept walking. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing: she would never let those words define her. She was not a curse. Deep inside, even in all the pain, she believed she was something more. Something stronger. And with that, Emily disappeared into the night, carrying only her pain, her hope, and a fire inside that no one could put out. Emily didn't know where she was going, but her feet kept moving until she reached the noisy, crowded city of Lagos. It was nothing like her village. Cars honked, people rushed past, and no one looked twice at a girl with dust on her feet and sadness in her eyes. She found a small corner near a busy bus station and made it her new home. Every night, she curled up beside her bag and tried to sleep, using a piece of cardboard as a bed. The nights were cold, and the city never truly slept. Sometimes, the noise helped her forget how alone she was. Other times, the silence in her heart was louder than the traffic. Emily knew she had to survive, so she started selling mats in the market. From sunrise to sunset, she shouted to passers-by, hoping someone would buy from her. Most ignored her. Some shouted back. But a few kind souls gave her just enough to eat and keep going. She never begged. She sold what little she had, with pride and quiet strength. But Emily wasn't just trying to survive. She wanted to grow. She found an old, torn accounting book left on a bench one day and kept it like treasure. Every night, she sat under a broken street lamp and taught herself to read the numbers. She sounded out words slowly, her finger tracing each line. Her eyes burned from the weak light. Her stomach growled. Sometimes, tears fell onto the pages, but she kept going. She whispered the lessons to herself like prayers. People laughed at her sometimes. Who is this girl talking to herself in the dark? But Emily didn't care. She was building a future word by word, number by number. Even when her hands were sore from carrying mats all day, she studied. Even when rain soaked her clothes, she sat under shelter and read. She watched the world around her and learned. She listened to traders argue and studied how they calculated prices. She asked questions when people were kind. Most ignored her. Some taught her little things. How to count fast, how to give change, how to speak with confidence. Every lesson was a brick in her foundation. Emily didn't have a classroom, or a teacher, or even a desk. But the streets of Lagos became her school. The buses, the sellers, the noise, they were her background music. The street lamp was her reading light. Her hunger was her alarm clock. Her pain was her push. And her dream? It was louder than the city itself. Each night, as she closed her eyes on the cold ground, she told herself, "One day, I won't sleep here again." She didn't know how or when, but she believed it. That belief, no matter how small, kept her alive. It turned her into something her father could never imagine, a girl full of quiet fire, learning in the darkest corners, waiting for her time to shine. At just 18, Emily walked through the shiny glass doors of a big finance company in Lekki. She had no fancy degree, no rich family, and no big name behind her, just a heart full of fire and eyes full of dreams. She had applied for every job she could find, and finally, someone gave her a chance. It was a junior position, more like running errands, making coffee, and filing papers. But to Amelie, it felt like walking into a palace. Every corner of the office was new and exciting. Computers clicked, phones rang, and people in suits spoke big words she didn't fully understand. But she listened, watched, and learned like her life depended on it, because it did. Most of the staff ignored her. Some even looked down on her. But Amelie smiled through it all. She stayed late after work, cleaning desks just so she could glance at reports left behind. She watched the way the analysts spoke in meetings. She took notes in a small diary she kept hidden in her bag. One day, while delivering coffee, the managing director noticed the way she arranged the numbers on a report by mistake, and it made more sense than the original. He was curious. He started giving her small tasks, quietly, without telling others. At night, when everyone left, Amelie stayed back. The MD allowed her to sit in his office sometimes, where he began to teach her. Quietly. No one knew. He saw something sharp in her, something rare. She was focused, fast, and fearless. She started learning about investments, spreadsheets, profit margins. Terms that once sounded like a different language now danced easily on her tongue. She soaked up everything like a sponge, reading company books, watching business videos, practicing presentations in front of the bathroom mirror when no one was watching. She began dressing differently too. Saving from her small pay, she bought simple, clean clothes. She walked taller, spoke clearer, and started to shine in meetings. Some people still whispered about the office girl trying too hard, but Amelie didn't care. She wasn't there to fit in. She was there to rise. Soon, her reports were used in board meetings. Her ideas were shared, sometimes without giving her credit. But she didn't complain. She kept working, kept climbing. She moved from the back of the office to her own desk. Then to a better one, closer to the decision-makers. She never forgot the nights of studying under a street lamp. That same fire still burned in her, even as she typed on sleek computers in air-conditioned rooms. Amelie didn't just learn finance. She became it. She started speaking the language of money fluently. She saw numbers as stories. She predicted trends, made smart suggestions, and earned quiet respect. Step by step, she was rising, not because of luck, but because she built her wings in silence. From mat seller to money mover, from street lamp to skyline views, Amelie was no longer just surviving. She was building an empire, one smart move at a time. Amelie had climbed high in the world of finance, but deep inside her heart, there was another dream waiting. She remembered the colors of her childhood, the bold patterns her mother used to wear, the way fabrics told stories without saying a word. Even after long days at the office, she would sketch designs in the back pages of her notebook. Late at night, while others slept, she imagined dresses that spoke of strength, of roots, of survival. One day, she decided it was time. She gathered all her savings, left her job, and moved to Abuja with nothing but a vision. People called her crazy for leaving a good job. But Amelie smiled, she had always taken the hard road. She named her brand Mama Thandi Designs, after the mother who had once wiped her tears in the dark. Her first pieces were handmade in a tiny rented room with one sewing machine and lots of hope. She mixed tribal prints with clean cuts, traditional colors with modern fits. Each design carried her story. Of pain, of power, of pride. She would walk around the city with clothes in her arms, showing them to boutiques, influencers, even strangers. Most doors closed in her face. But a few opened. A local blogger wore one of her dresses and posted a photo online. People noticed. Orders started trickling in. Soon, her Instagram was buzzing. Celebrities reached out. One by one, they wore her pieces, on red carpets, in music videos, in magazine covers. Within months, Mama Thandi designs became the name on everyone's lips. Amelie could hardly believe it. The same girl who once sold mats on the street was now dressing stars. Her designs were not just clothes, they were statements. They whispered of culture, screamed confidence, and wrapped every woman in pride. She hired tailors from poor neighborhoods. Trained young girls who had never touched a sewing machine. She remembered how it felt to be cast aside, to be told, "You can't." So she turned her brand into more than fashion, it became a movement. She told the girls, "You are not a mistake. Your hands can build something beautiful." Fashion shows called. TV shows wanted her story. Magazines wrote about the girl who rose from nothing. But Amelie stayed grounded. Every dress that left her studio carried a part of her past, stitched with love, pain, and power. She wore her own designs too, with pride. Walking through malls, sitting in meetings, attending interviews, her outfits made people turn twice. Not just because they were beautiful, but because they had soul. People weren't just buying clothes. They were buying courage, culture, and a piece of Amelie's journey. And as she looked around her growing studio, fabrics flowing, machines buzzing, and laughter in the air, she smiled. From the dust of Ijebu to the bright lights of Abuja, she had taken her scars and turned them into style. Her brand was not just born from creativity, it was born from every wound, every whisper, every door slammed in her face. And now, those same doors were opening wide. Amelie was 28 when she finally returned to Ijebu, the village that once threw her away. But this time, she wasn't walking with bare feet or sleeping under a tree. No. She arrived in a sleek black Range Rover, the engine humming like quiet thunder. The sun was high as her car rolled into the dusty streets. Curious eyes followed. People froze. Children stopped playing. Traders paused mid-sale. No one knew who was inside the car, until the door opened, and Amelie stepped out. She wore a flowing gown made from the finest fabric, her own design, rich in color and dripping with elegance. Her shoes sparkled. Her skin glowed. Even the wind seemed to respect her as it gently moved the hem of her dress. The same villagers who once called her a curse now stood with mouths wide open. Some whispered her name. Others just stared. Could this really be Amelie? The girl who once begged for help near the market? The one her father kicked out like garbage? Yes. And now she was back. Not with anger, but with quiet power. She walked through the village slowly, smiling kindly, nodding at old faces. Some avoided her eyes, ashamed. Others tried to pretend they had always supported her. But Amelie didn't speak of the past. She let her present speak for her. Her car, her clothes, her grace, everything shouted what words didn't need to say. She visited the small house she once called home. The door creaked the same way. The tree she cried under was still there. But now, everything looked smaller. Not because it had changed, but because she had grown so much. Later that day, the village elders gathered. They invited her to sit with them, offer blessings, share her story. The same people who once looked down on her now looked up with admiration. Amelie shared her journey, not with pride, but with purpose. She told the girls in the crowd, "They called me a curse. But look, this curse became a crown." Mothers wept softly. Young girls sat wide-eyed, dreaming bigger than before. Even the men, so used to seeing women in silence, nodded with respect. Amelie didn't return to show off. She returned to show what was possible. She gave out gifts, school bags, sewing machines, scholarships for girls, and boxes filled with books. She even visited her old school and promised to renovate it completely. Everywhere she went, people clapped and cheered. Amelie had not just returned rich in money, she returned rich in spirit, in strength, in story. That day, Ijibuode changed. Because one girl, once broken and bruised, came back stronger than anyone thought possible. She proved that even from dust, something beautiful can rise. And as the sun set behind her, casting a golden light on the village, one thing became clear: Amelie was no longer just a girl from Ijibuode. She was its brightest star. Ezekiel sat under the old tree near the market, fanning himself with a folded newspaper. It was just another hot day in Ijibuode, filled with the usual noise: traders shouting prices, children laughing, the smell of roasted corn in the air. He looked tired, older now, his clothes worn. No one really paid attention to him anymore. He had once walked these roads with pride, voice loud, head high. But today, he seemed smaller somehow, as if time had weighed him down. Then, something strange happened. The market grew quiet. People stopped talking. All eyes turned toward the main road. A huge delivery truck rolled in slowly, and behind it, a team of young workers rushed to hang a giant billboard beside the local store. Ezekiel stood up, curious. The billboard showed a beautiful woman in a stunning dress, her smile powerful, her eyes full of fire. Above her head, bold letters read, "Mama Thandi Designs, founded by Amelie Ezekiel." His heart stopped. His mouth opened, but no words came. That name. That face. That pride. His own daughter. The same girl he had called a curse. The same child he had pushed out of his home and heart. He blinked hard, as if maybe he had imagined it. But the image stayed. Bright. Bold. Unmissable. Around him, people began whispering. "Isn't that his daughter? That's Amelie. She owns the fashion brand on TV." The words stung like bees. Ezekiel didn't answer. He just stood there, silent, as if the air had been knocked out of his chest. He remembered his own voice shouting, "A daughter brings nothing but trouble." He remembered how she cried, how she walked away barefoot, how he never even turned to watch her go. Now the whole village was watching him. And he had nothing to say. The market women who once agreed with him now looked at him with quiet judgment. The same men who laughed at Amelie's struggle now shook their heads at him. His own past echoed loudly in the silence. His pride, once so sharp, now felt like a heavy chain. Amelie hadn't just made it, she had risen so high that even the sky wasn't enough. And she had done it without his help, without his support, without his love. As the billboard crew stepped back to admire their work, a light wind blew through the market, as if carrying Amelie's silent message, "I remember everything, but I rose anyway." Ezekiel slowly sat back down, staring at the billboard. The beautiful fabric, the confident pose, the powerful name, his daughter's name. A name he once saw as worthless now shone brighter than any he'd ever known. And in that moment, as people walked past him whispering, not one person greeted him as Baba Amelie. No one clapped for him. No one smiled at him. He had become a shadow in the light of the very girl he had thrown away. And all he could do was sit, stunned, listening to the marketplace hum again, this time with her name on everyone's lips. The village hall was packed. Everyone had heard the news: Amelie was coming to the council meeting. Chairs were full, people stood by the walls, curious and whispering. Even her father, Ezekiel, sat near the front, quiet, unsure of what to expect. Then the door opened, and Amelie walked in, calm and graceful, dressed in one of her stunning designs. The room fell silent. She walked straight to the front, greeted the elders politely, then turned to face the crowd. She began to speak, not with anger, but with purpose. She told them how the same family farm that once raised food had also raised heartbreak, how she had been pushed out, called a curse, and left to survive on her own. Some people lowered their eyes. Others nodded slowly. Then Amelie smiled and said, "But I didn't come here for revenge. I came with a plan." She reached into her bag and pulled out a check. She walked up to her father and placed it gently in front of him. Everyone leaned forward. The amount written was more than enough to buy the farm, and some extra. "This is for the land," she said, "but also for the pain." Then she turned to the council and said, "From now on, this farm will hire young girls from our village. No daughter should ever feel unwanted again. They will work, learn, and grow with pride." The room erupted in applause. Some cried. Her father sat still, the check trembling in his hand. And just like that, Amelie didn't just buy back the land, she bought back dignity, hope, and a future for every girl in Ijebuode.